Hello and Happy New Year. So I titled this video my New Year's message to white people because I think that 2019 is going to be the year that white people realize that they are on the same team. Now, Professor Dr. Jordan Peterson has in the past stated that life is kind of a series of games that we go through, but the ultimate game is really life itself. Interestingly, though, he doesn't tell you who else is playing this game, what kind of teams there are, because he just wants to think that we're all individuals, right? And I think a lot of us have been exploring this idea that we are more than individuals, and if we remain as individuals while other people are fighting on teams, it's not going to end up very well for us. So, okay, we're playing some kind of game, some civilizational game, if you will. Fortunately for us, it's not outright war at this point. Some people might long for the day when there is outright war, but I'm not that cynical. I am grateful for the opportunity to resolve things through, shall we say, influence and persuasion, but mainly influence. So how do you know what team you're on? Well, there could be any number of ways for that. And the moment that you suggest race as a possibility for what team you're on, there are some reactions that come up, some objections. They say, okay, why race? That's so subjective, you know. You could pick, it's so arbitrary. You could pick German. Oh, I'm on the German team, or I'm on the American team. You like my new setup here? And that's very tempting, but the way that you know which team you're on, it's very simple. You just have to look around you. And this is the case in sports. You look around and you see when your team loses, who are the people, what are the reactions? Who are the people that are sulking and bowing their heads and walking to the other side? I'll tell you a little bit about my own experience playing sports, and you can tell me in the comments what your experiences have been like. So I grew up, for the first 18 years or so, I shouldn't say that. I started in high school. For the first 14 years or so, I was resistant to the idea of sports. I disdained the jocks. My brother and I would laugh at them and, say how dumb they were and that all they cared about was winning their silly little games, and how foolish is that. And then when I went away to high school, I got into, it was still pretty nerdy because I went to a nerd school, if you will, but I got into Ultimate Frisbee. And despite what some of the stereotypes are out there, it's very competitive if you play it right. Ultimate Frisbee, there's a lot of running. It's kind of like soccer, cross between that and football, right? You have end zones on each side. You have 7 players on each team, and you're facing off against each other. There's different techniques, different positions and zones that you can throw on people on the other team. So that was my introduction to the world of sports. And the thing about Ultimate Frisbee is when your team loses, the other team scores a point in the end zone, you're all at that end zone. Well, that team has now, if you will, conquered the end zone, and so the losing team has to walk back to the other side of the field. And it's kind of a walk of shame, if you will. Although we're not in high heels and smelling of alcohol and carrying a little purse. So that's how we knew that we were the losing team, is because we were the ones who had to take a walk. As it is right now, white people, not only are they on the losing team, they don't even know that they're playing. So what do we have to do? Because you look around you, and it is very clear that we're on the losing team. Just look at Twitter. Look at all the anti-white hatred that's allowed on Twitter. The very fact that you can support black nationalism, Jewish nationalism, Asian nationalism, although they'll probably come for that next. But you cannot support white nationalism. Otherwise, you're a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, all of these things. So that in itself is racist, right? If racism has any meaning whatsoever, then allowing ethnic homogeneity for all groups except for one group, that is the definition. Now, a lot of people focus on our opponents. Who is the other team? And I understand that to some degree. We want to know what the other team is doing, what they're like, what kind of jerseys they wear, if you will. There are some players on the other team who like to wear the same jerseys as the white team. But then they go around saying, oh, jersey color doesn't matter. But I think No White Guilt has said it best when he talks about the anti-whites. And in some ways, that's all we need, right? We don't need some boogeyman necessarily at this point in time, for sure. We just need to tell people, hey, a lot of people are against us, okay? And so why don't we gather, why don't we organize? Why don't we start realizing that we are involved in this game, this civilizational game, whether we like it or not? So there's all kinds of things. This is psychological warfare. This is what they throw at us to break down our cohesion, atomize us into individuals. They throw silly stuff at us like, oh, well, how far down do you have to, break it down? Are you, what is white really? You hear this thing a lot. It's like, are Italians white? And it's like, we can figure that out when we solve the problem of anti-white hatred, okay? We'll solve that problem. And by the way, yes, the anti-whites, they are a coalition as well. Very broad. Sure, there are some who are more powerful than others and some who are leading the charge of globalism. By the way, globalism is only for white countries. Kind of ironic, that name, huh? But no, they have blacks, Jews, Asians. There's a lot of Mexicans, there's this coalition. that has basically become the Democrat Party now. And so it wasn't always like this, but it is moving toward this. And that's why I say in 2019, white people will start to realize that they're on the same team. And hopefully that means more whites coming over and voting for Republican, which has become the default white party. And sure, if you're non-white and you're listening to this, yeah, you can still vote Republican. You can still help us. Stephen Miller, who is Jewish, has said that Jews need to stop thinking in terms of what is best for the Jews and thinking in terms of what is best for European civilization, because they have advanced things the farthest. And everyone benefits if they benefit. There's also purity spiraling. If you're half white, are you allowed in? It's not that important right now. What is important is that we realize what these teams are. And we can make the final decisions. There has to be a coach and everything. There has to be a team captain. But the biggest hurdle for us is realizing that we are playing on the same team. At least at this point in time. Again, we can figure out political and religious disagreements later. And Team White is currently down by a lot of points. They've done this not because they're so much better than us, right? It's because they've gotten us to just kind of give up. If you're not actually playing the game, and in fact, you're hindering your own team. This is the psychological warfare. They've gotten us to believe that these anti-whites, that, well, you're the oppressor, and you see, what you really need to do is throw the ball into your own goal. And if they can do that, they don't have to do any work. They don't have to. It's not actually a competition, except that it is. And a lot of people will say, well, maybe the Jordan Peterson's types is like, oh, why do I have to play this game? I don't want to play this game. Well, yeah, you do have that choice when it comes to sports. Absolutely. You can choose not to get involved in sports. You can say, I don't like these people, I'm not going to play with them, etc. We don't have that choice when it comes to our civilization. Well, of course, you always have a choice. But at what cost? By the time you see this, I very well may be a father. Hopefully I will. And, my wife is due to give birth any day now. And for me, it's not a choice. Whether I just give up and stop fighting for a world for my daughter to grow up with security and order and prosperity and a degree of freedom. I don't feel I can just give that up and say, well, it's your problem now. Sorry. And I wish that my parents and their parents had fought harder or fought at all, and not just walked away from the conflict. And I sympathize because, yes, they're always trying to indoctrinate you, trying to get you to, the whole classical liberalism thing. It's just about the individual. It's not about the individual. because if it was about the individual, whites would not be in this situation. We would not be under attack constantly. And, well, whatever you think about the Jewish people, they certainly are united by their perceived victimhood, right? That brings them together. That they more strongly identify with the Holocaust than they do with even their nation state or whatever. And in fact, that's a justification. You listen to Sam Harris, and he says, well, I can't justify the ethnic nation state, but on the other hand, I can, because Jews have been persecuted. And if that's the game that's being played, well, white people don't have to make up anything. Not that I'm saying all of their grievances are made up, but we can look at the discrimination in our society, and just the fact that our society has slipped away from us, and that can't happen by accident. You know, this isn't just some natural thing. Oh, well, this is just the way of the world, and this is an inevitability. This is progress towards some greater future that's going to be some gray-brown mixture. And we're going to have diversity, but meanwhile, when whites become a minority in a country like South Africa, we see them being slaughtered and their land taken away. You think we don't see that? So we have to get past the psychological warfare. A lot of times in sports you hear the game is 50% mental. And that's true. So, what do we do? What do we do as a team? Well, first thing we can do, and a lot of people have started already on this through YouTube channels, etc., is recruit. We have to recruit people. This is just waking people up, basically, saying, hey, you know there's a game out there. There is a game, and it's coming for you whether you want it or not. Again, I talked about these whites who are playing for the other team. I get that. You see your team losing over and over again, and you think, I don't want to be a loser. Why don't I just go play for the other team? They're winning. Why not just get the spoils? And that's a cowardly way out. You don't have to improve yourself, especially since they're not playing a fair fight, right? So yeah, that's the self-hating whites, and they're despicable. We can't necessarily win them over, but we can win over the people who are in the middle, who are just, they don't realize they haven't woken up to all the things, and it's becoming harder and harder to ignore. You see these viral videos of this genius boy, Julian Von Ebela, on Columbia campus defending white people, saying, I love white people, I don't hate other people, but I love white people. And that's what it is, right? Just because you're facing off against an opponent in a game doesn't mean you hate them. It just means you're enjoying the game. I mean, that's what they do. You're both engaging in that, and if neither of you want to engage in that, then you don't grow. I think that's part of the reason why we have these different racial groups and such, is to help us grow. If you're a spiritual person, you would say God gave us these to ascend to a higher level. And by higher level, I don't mean we're past race, we're post race. No. That's not it at all. So we have to recruit, wake people up, and that's happening. Largely, I would say Trump right now is our coach figure. What you have disagreements about him, he's not explicitly white nationalist, of course. He wouldn't win election that way. But he's implicitly white nationalist, right? If, white people want order, and that's how they're going to vote when things start to get chaotic, is they're going to vote in favor of order. And so if you attack order, if you attack the family, these type of things, it's an implicit attack on whiteness. And so, yeah, Trump is our coach. We may one day have a coach or a leader who's more explicit about things. But, just recognize that that's where we are in the society, and we don't always have to go along directly with the coach. We can have disagreements with him, and that's a healthy thing. So, also we have to train. You recruit, and then you train, and that means honing your skills. That means forming communities. A big part of our training will be securing income for creators like myself and other people who are now getting kicked, Sargon's kicked off Patreon. So now you can't even be someone who's on the sidelines of the main racial game that's going on, because he veers a little too close. He's a little too friendly with people. He gives people a platform to, he believes in the marketplace of ideas and stuff. And they can't have that. So, yeah, a whole lot of people are realizing, oh, wow. And it's not just them, it's the payment processors. So how are we going to secure funding for our people so that they can speak out freely? It's a big challenge, and that's part of our training. Going to the gym, obviously, is part of our training. We have to get, if you want to sharpen your mind, you have to sharpen your body first. The two are interlinked. So even if you're not a big bodybuilder, I do go to the gym with the intent of pushing myself, even though I'm not some kind of bodybuilder or weightlifter. But going to the gym and, trying to set a new record, or, essentially shocking your body into the reality. I like to think about that when I'm lifting weights sometimes. It's just, wow, this is heavy. This is the reality, and let me just savor this a little bit. So we have to, I think, learn to enjoy the suffering, if you will. I don't think of it as suffering, but the pain, because there's a lot of pain potentially that is coming. Inevitably, basically. I mean, we've with the Federal Reserve and everything, it's hard to imagine a scenario where a lot of people don't go through a lot of pain. So you have to work up to your tolerance to pain now. And part of that is physical, part of that is mental. Whatever you can do to clear out your mind and become more at peace with yourself and to trust yourself will help you. And that sounds like an individualist thing, but yeah, it is in service of your team, that you improve yourself and you get better. And having that purpose actually drives you more. If you're just doing it for you, if you're just doing it, oh, I want to have a lot of money or get a lot of girls and stuff like that, it's not going to be fulfilling. Let's face it. Maybe for a decade or so, and then you burn out. Look at Rushfi, the master of game. But he talks about this sometimes. Like, he's rethinking things. He's not really content with the lifestyle he's lived. And so and he's now coming around to our side. He's coming around to our team and being more pro-white. And then the last thing that we do is we simulate the game day. And this is sparring. This is the blood sports. You know, why is it that the other team, the anti-whites, really didn't want to, with a couple minor exceptions, nobody really wanted to get involved in the blood sports? I think that's kind of why it fell apart, is because, or fell out of favor, is because people didn't think that it was a serious thing, because a lot of these people were more or less in the same sphere. We're all anti-establishment, anti-authoritarian, against the big powers that are out there, right? The anti-globalist. So in the blood sports, you had these nationalists fighting against each other. But that is important, and that was an important phase to go through. I would still like to see more of it, because we do need to hone our skills, and the ability to debate and persuade people is very important. Now, I'm not someone who says, you know, logic will win the day. Let's bet everything on logic. No, it's just not going to happen. You're going to win a certain number of people over with logic, but emotion's going to have to play a key role in this. And luckily, debates involve both logic and emotions. And it's right now the debate, you know, as I said, it's not a fair fight. The other side is using influence. They're using money power. And political power. So they're wielding guns to get their way, and they're wielding soft power, basically, to get their way. Media influence. When you repeat a narrative over and over and over again, eventually people start to buy into it. I wish it weren't that way, but that's the way it is. And so part of the reason I think it fell apart is because people realized, well, debates are not going to win the day for our team. We're going to have to use some of their tactics, some of the Alinsky tactics, if you will. We also tried organizing. We tried in real life meetings. And this is why the game analogy is so apt. We showed up on that field. You know, there were a couple brave players who came out and said, hey, we're here. We know what you're up to. And we're not going to stand for it. We're not going to let you take down these statues that represent our people. We're going to fight back against it. And we're going to put up a show. We're going to protest, which is what they do all the time. That's how they got to where they are. And because they know very well the power of protest, right? And so they couldn't allow this to happen. So Charlottesville happens. People are framed for, I don't know what, trying to organize a white supremacist rally or something. And then one guy who gets into a car accident is now in jail for the rest of his life. So that is something you can talk to people about. When they say, I don't think this game is happening, tell them about Charlottesville. Do you think that this is a fair carrying out of justice? That this kid goes to a rally and he's surrounded by the anti-white mob who came there to disrupt a legally organized rally. They came with weapons. We came with shields. And the police were on their side. It was all organized. It was all a setup. And so they do have the power to do this. And I think it was the first time we realized what we're up against. Exactly. So, how do we win? Have to get people to realize that there's a game going on. We have to get people. See, this is the thing about teamwork and everything. There are people who have greater abilities than you, and that's a good thing. You may have greater abilities than them in some areas, and so not everyone's going to be a podcaster, not everyone's going to be an artist, or what have you, a YouTuber. But that doesn't mean you can't play a role, because this battlefield is enormous. It's not like Ultimate Frisbee where it's just 7-on-7. This is civilizations colliding, if you will, and one trying to subvert and take over from the inside another. So we're going to have to prepare for that day when the actual game takes place. We're not ready for that day. We're not ready to actually face them in this game. There's too many people who will fight us, too many self-hating whites. Frankly, there's too many black pillars. And black pilling is just self-blame, really. You're playing a game. This is for the people who are involved, and they're playing the game, and maybe they make a mistake or something. And instead of saying, hey, I made a mistake in this game, you know, in the case of Ultimate, oh, I dropped the disc. Well, instead of saying, okay, maybe I need to train more, I need to learn more about catching, can ask some people for help, they start to self-criticize them. The inner critic comes out, and they're saying, oh, this is hopeless, we're never going to win. Ugh. And this kind of defeatist mentality is, I think, just a way of skirting around their own failures, their own ability to act. Because I don't feel like that. If I'm out there doing stuff and I'm scoring a victory in my mind and getting more views, getting more subscribers, more donations. By the way, go to illustratedphilosophy.com/donate. You have to put the forward, the backslash, or sorry, the forward slash at the end. Otherwise, it won't go there. But yeah, if I am making strides, then I'm very optimistic for my team. And yeah, the reality is harsh, but that only strengthens my resolve. So I think that you can show people reality. You can lift the curtain and show people what is behind it, and what the stakes are if we lose. Talk about South Africa, etc. But you have to balance that with the positives that we have, and what we have is momentum. A lot of people felt like we lost that after Trump's election, and perhaps we did. I think, call me a QAnon retard, but I think that was intentional. I think he's very good at figuring out how to ride momentum, especially for campaigns. That's how he wins. So I do think that 2019 will be an up year instead of a down year like 2017 and 2018. So I'm optimistic for this year, and it's only going to happen if people like us keep up the progress that we're doing and continue to train, continue to find ways to sustain ourselves and overcome the censorship that is going on online, overcome the demonetization and the deplatforming. And once we do that, people will start to listen to us. Oh yeah, you're right. White people are under attack. I mean, I'm not racist, but I don't like what's going on here. And then a couple months later, bam, they're fully on board Team White. This is the ultimate game, in my opinion. Like, this combines so many skills and sports. It's chess, it's football, it's politics. It's all of those things wrapped together. It's the fight for the culture. And I am very happy to be a part of it. I thank God. That is another thing you can do to train yourself, is train yourself spiritually, of course, whatever that means to you. But we're going to need that resolve and that determination that I think only comes from faith. And so I am so grateful for the opportunity to serve God and to serve our team in this struggle. So I'm fully on board Team White. Are you?